and welcome to my review of Resurrection, Season 2, Episode 4, Old Scars. If you're finding me for the first time, I do reviews of Resurrection, Gotham, Flash, Arrow, and The Walking Dead every week. So please tune in and subscribe so you can get them. The first scene is with Lucille in her bed, and she's visibly upset, and she walks down to her porch and starts to cry. Margaret finds her and asks her why. It turns out it's 35 years to the day that young Jacob had died, and she spends this day in mourning. And despite the fact that he has come back from the dead, she cannot shake off this feeling. Margaret decides that they should use this opportunity to make this a day of celebration rather than a day of mourning, and invite the family over for a big dinner. And Lucille reluctantly agrees. The next scene, Fred and Margaret are having breakfast. Fred wants to ask her about the bones that they had found in the river, and Margaret has no idea about them. But she does have an idea that he should come to the dinner. He understandably is not wanting to go because the parents are upset because he had turned Jacob into the government. Well, she wasn't having any of it, and he reluctantly agrees. At home, Lucille and Jacob are setting up for the big dinner party, and Jacob asked, "Well, is Aunt Barbara coming?" And everyone stops and looks at him. Aunt Barbara, of course, they all have resentment against her too, but he's not having any of it and throws a fit. So Henry decides that he's going to go and visit Barbara, and she doesn't want to go, understandably. But Henry says that the returned have this power to heal all old wounds. So she agrees, she buys it. Meanwhile, Bellamy is investigating the bones as well. And he finds a clue in the newspaper and leads him to the family factory. He calls Fred to tell him his findings, but Fred's at the party from hell, the party that we've been waiting for. People who haven't spoken in 35 years, who have had a lifetime to build up grudge and hatred and backstabbing and wouldn't be caught dead in the same room, are now coming to dinner together. Some people have come back from the dead and still are not talking, and yet they're going to have dinner. All we need to do is add alcohol and watch the fun begin. What do you think is going to happen? It's only time before someone picks up the first knife and starts carving up, and this is Lucille. She accuses Barbara of robbing her of 35 years with her son. She just lays into her, and Barbara gets up and leaves with Maggie and Fred. Fred and Barbara outside have this moment of reconciliation and a little kiss, and Maggie gets to see it. Meanwhile, at the factory, Bellamy is walking around with a flashlight, investigating, and Fred pops up. I guess he ran from the party. And he doesn't have a clue. He doesn't know anything about the factory, even though he has been investigating it. Is he trying to protect the family? Is he trying to protect his mother? The scene is broken up by a crash at the front of the factory. They run out front and they find the deputy's brother, who had been killed and then returned in the last episode. He's very sick, he's got a fever, so they bring him to Maggie's clinic. And the clinic is just filled with people suffering from the same virus, apparently. Do the returned have some sort of illness? Finally, Jake was being put to bed by Grandma. He wants a bedtime story. So she tells him a story about the demons returning from the dead, and the community rising up and killing these demons, but they kept returning and returning. And eventually a little girl discovers the secret to stopping them, and the girl returns as a demon herself. She pretty much admits that she is the little girl. And what is the secret in stopping them from returning? Overall, I had a lot of problems with this episode. I'm not sure if it's poor writing or I just don't believe normal people behave in this manner. At least the characters that have been set up. These people have spent a lifetime building up animosity and anger, and now they're old and they're set in their ways, and then you're going to ask them to sit at a dinner table together without any type of intervention to air out their dirty laundry? I think that the writers thought, well, what if we just stick them at a table and see what happens and let the fun begin? Maybe the ratings will go up. I don't know. Maybe I'm jaded. But I just don't believe this would normally happen. I'm still confused about Sheriff Fred. In a span of 4 episodes, he went from distrustful of the returned, turning in his own nephew, to drunk on the street, fighting with Agent Bellamy during the midday, suicidal with a gun in his mouth, only to be stopped at the last minute by his mother, sober, and then Sherlock Holmes, figuring out the cloth belonged to the factory, to having dinner with the returned that he had just turned into the government and was distrustful with. And then he makes up with his ex-wife. Maybe you had a different opinion. Maybe I've missed something. Can you leave some comments below and let me know what you thought? And as always, please subscribe.